toxic masculinity.
Washington Post tries to paint capital murderer as a positive guy.
As a positive guy, and I actually should have retitled this.
Positive in what case?
Oh, I'll explain.
For COVID?
Positive for COVID. No. That would actually make sense. No, I actually should have retitled. Huh?
AIDS?
It's hilarious. Stop interrupting. I should have retitled this social media paints him, because it's not just the Washington Post. I also found it's the New York Times as well. And let's have a look at this. So, no, he's not medically positive for a disease. What he is apparently a great guy. He's a great guy. So the New York Post comes out with this article, family and friends concerned Noah Green was unraveling before Capitol attack. And I remember I got this popped up on my phone, and I remember looking at this and being like, well, that's kind of a weird way to portray a murderer. Now, the guy's, clearly a murderer, right? He intentionally ran into police officers with his car, and then jumped out of his car and then tried to stab them. This is like maniac behavior. And now they found that he's, and this is a black guy killing white cops, and he's a member of the Nation of Islam, which indicates that we've covered the Nation of Islam on this show. They're insane. They're basically the Ku Klux Klan of black people. So if you're a black person and you hate white people, join the Nation of Islam. That's where you go. It's like joining the Ku Klux Klan, right? All they talk about is how evil white people are. The Nation of Islam is legit crazy. Like it's a religion based around the idea that white people are monsters and black people are like, the natural correct people. They talk about historical things, right? Things that are in the Bible, historical places. Coronavirus. The teachings of Elijah Muhammad and Louis Farrakhan and all the crazy people that basically popularized the Nation of Islam. Like the stuff in the books, like if you actually read through the books, it's like Moses went to Europe and tried to teach the savage white people how to be like civilized black people. But they couldn't be civilized. They were too evil. So then Moses just blew them all up with dynamite. Even though dynamite wasn't invented until like the very late 19th century. Like the very, very late 19th century, dynamite was invented famously by the guy who developed the Nobel Prize, because after he developed dynamite became used in ways that ended up killing people, obviously most of the time incidentally, like if they're in a mine or, there's some kind of accidental explosion, people died. He felt so bad about this that he created the Nobel Prize to sort of atone for his sins. They didn't have dynamite in in Moses' times. They didn't have dynamite in Moses' times. It didn't make it. Everything in that book is crazy. I think the whole concept of the Nation of Islam is that there was a guy named there was some guy back in Africa, and he was a scientist, and he wanted to dominate the world, and so he created white people as a race of basically monsters to go out and subjugate black people, and so all white people are the whole thing is just completely crazy. But anyway, so this guy he's a follower of Farrakhan, which indicates to me that he was almost for sure a total racist. Goes and kills a couple of white cops, and then where's the protests? Where's the White Lives Matter protests? I don't see that happening. There's no outcry. Nobody seems to care. Although, despite the fact that it's pretty much been proven at this point that George Floyd died of a drug overdose, they're still going through with the trial of the police officer who was restraining him in the way that the Minneapolis Police Department told this guy, this is how you restrain suspects. He was doing what he was told to do, and yet they're still going through this trial. And there's still people preparing to protest when the guy is inevitably declared innocent because he obviously didn't do anything wrong. Derek Chauvin, I believe is his name.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so let's look at how they've described this guy. So family and friends were concerned about this poor guy who he was unraveling before his.
Is that what the article says?
This is the family and friend. This is the headline. It is family and friends concerned Noah Green was unraveling before Capitol attack.
Unraveling?
Unraveling means like mentally unraveling. Like he was having a mental breakdown, and that's why he did. They're like the whole article, obviously from the beginning, even the headline is trying to gaslight everybody into thinking this guy was a great guy. This murderer was actually just a fantastic guy. And I'll read the beginning for you, but there's a part toward the end that is really the key to this whole thing. So it says, Brendan Green said the troubling signs his brother was unraveling built up until the night before authorities said Noah Green launched an attack outside the Capitol. Brendan Green said his brother was violently ill Thursday evening in the Virginia apartment they shared before he left and sent a forlorn text. That was one of their final communications. Because every time I feel sick, I don't want to like sleep. I don't want to eat chicken soup. I want to kill police officers. That's a great justification. That's fantastic. All right. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to go and live and be homeless, Brendan said. Brendan said the text read, "Thank you for everything that you've done. I've looked up to you when I was a kid. You inspired me a lot." Less than 24 hours later, Capitol Police said a man crashed his vehicle into two officers at a barricade outside the Capitol before getting out of the car and charging him with a knife. At least one officer opened fire, fatally wounding him. Several people familiar with the investigation identified the subject as Noah Green. And one thing that is like conspicuously absent from this entire story is any mention that the guy's black and that the cops he killed were white. There's no mention of that, and there's no picture of him. They don't have any pictures anywhere. There's no pictures anywhere of him. It's like they don't want you to know that he's a black guy that killed white people.
Well, what do you expect to do? Like
Here's the thing. I honestly, I don't think they should write that he's a black guy that killed white people. I don't think that really matters that much. The problem is that every single time a white person kills a black person, and even when it's a Syrian Muslim killing people, it's still reported as a white guy. Like, they desperately want white men killing people so that they can paint this picture of America as this deeply racist place that encourages white people to kill people. But if something like this happens, they're just like, let me explain why this guy wasn't such a bad guy, and let's not show his picture, and nobody say he's black. Whatever you do. I'm sure in the original story there was some kind of references and they talked about posting his photo, but they just never did. They must have taken it out later, or maybe they never did from the beginning. Maybe they were just anyway. Let's keep reading this. Okay, Noah Green, who is in his early 20s. That's a good description. That paints a nice picture. Early 20s. Got it. It's the only information we get.
Early 20s.
Was remembered as a stalwart defensive back on the Christopher Newport University football team before he slid into deep religiousness and paranoia that left family and friends concerned about his mental state in recent years. I mean, he was just an ordinary kid playing football. That's how we're gonna paint this kid. Why don't they do that? Why don't they do that with any of like the white mass shooters that are always condemning? Why do I never see in the Washington Post like this sympathetic portrayal of this white shooter? You would never get this kind of treatment if the Noah Green was a white guy and he killed black guys. This article would be completely the opposite. It would all be about how evil he is.
I don't think there would be even an article, because what are you going to write about white guy killing somebody?
They're a white supremacist,
Yeah,
and
that's
it's Trump's
That's
fault.
the whole article. That's the whole article.
Oh, they can fill that. They can fill that out. So let me scroll down here because the rest of this is just fluff. Basically the same stuff over and over and over again. Let's see here. So this is it. Damian Jiggets, 22, said Green was a model student athlete at CNU who showed no signs of mental health struggles or other issues. Yeah, because maybe he wasn't mentally unstable. Maybe he just was a murderer. Racist.
So he was playing football, mentally unstable. There is anything about him singing in the church? What else did they gonna write good about him?
Sorry, guys, I forgot to switch to the article view here, so you didn't see anything until now. But this is the part that I really wanted you to see anyway. This guy, Damian Jiggets, writes, he was a stand-up guy, said Jiggets, who graduated last year. He was on the dean's list. He was a motivator. That was the Noah I knew. And regardless of what happened today, that is what his legacy should be. He should be remembered as a positive guy. No! He should be remembered as a racist murderer. That's how he should be remembered. Darling, I think you need to turn your brightness up.
No sun today? No sunset? That's disappointing.
Yeah. I don't know. The sunset.
Usually, like this time, sun hitting me like crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, but it gets worse, you guys. It's not just the Washington Post. I realized that New York Times has an article almost exactly the same. It's almost like they're conspiring together. This one says, Capitol suspect struggled before attack, but his motive remains unclear. Does it? Does the motive remain unclear? Murderous hatred of white people. That's my guess. That is my guess. Noah R. Green had been distressed, but had no known history of violence when he rammed his car into two police officers, killing one and injuring another before being killed himself. What a poor, gentle soul this murderer is. And you see this random police officer at the Capitol, flag at half-mast. No photo of him. There's a wrecked car being towed away. No photo of the guy who actually committed the crime, because we don't want you to know what he looks like. Then if you go to Newsweek, they did not get the memo. Apparently Newsweek did not get the memo because they've actually written Louis Farrakhan silent after Noah Green linked to Nation of Islam. Well, but again, there's no picture of Noah Green. So I don't know if at the time they wrote the article, they just didn't have one or what. You have to actually go to Gateway Pundit to finally find a picture of Noah Green. This is what Noah Green looked like. Maybe to his friends he was a nice guy, but follower of the nation, follower of Farrakhan, and the Nation of Islam. It's a racist organization. I'm sorry. It is essentially the black version of the KKK, and it needs to be condemned a lot more strongly. And people like Biden, who are out there talking about how we're a racist country, and people are being oppressed and being hated for the color of their skin. That language needs to shift a little bit to what I think is more appropriate, which is that the racism is not coming from white people. It's coming from black people against white people. And actually, and I've said it many times on this show, although this case is an exception, this definitely did hurt white people. In most of the ways that racism from black people to white people affects this country is it actually hurts black people.
That's true.
It hurts black people. You wonder why there is this disproportionate level of black poverty. It's because black people are racist against white people. How are you going to succeed if you don't interact with the rest of the country? If you're disproportionately poor and you say, I'm not going to deal with all those rich people, and not that white people are all rich, you know what I mean? But the majority of wealthy people in this country are white. And there's obviously a lot of rich Asian people and stuff like that. But, there's rich black people, there's rich Latinos, there's rich everybody. But if you're like, I'm not going to, if the majority number of rich people are white and you say, I'm not going to deal with those white people, you're limiting yourself extremely. Here's an idea. If you want to be successful in life, anyone, and you're a creative person or you're somebody who, wants to start a business, something like that, just be nice to everybody.
I was nice today to a Hispanic woman.
You were nice. You were nice today.
I was standing
to a Hispanic woman.
Yes, because I was in the bank in the line.
It's so rare that Valeria's nice to someone she actually has to mention it on the show.
You know what's weird? That I become more nicer to Hispanic and black people. I was nice before, and now I want to be even more nicer to hey, we don't hate you.
Right? Really? You feel compelled to be nicer?
Yes.
I don't. I'm nice to people. I'm nice to people if I perceive them to be a decent person. If I perceive them to be a complete degenerate, white, black, Hispanic, whatever. I will still treat
person nicely.
But because I do not discriminate who I'm mean to. If I think that I don't like you for some reason, I'm pretty mean. You can attest to this. I mean, you could either agree or disagree. Okay. I don't think she knows what the word attest means.
Yes, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was funny actually when Scott Pressler was leaving the show, the apartment. Some random person was giving out cards to us, like business cards, which was not something either of us could use because he doesn't live here and I had no interest in the business. But Scott Pressler was so nice to this woman who's like super sweet, like aggressively nice. And she responded very well. It was a nice interaction. I just thought, well, that was very nice. But I wouldn't have done that. I would have just been like, thanks. I wouldn't have been mean. But man, that guy's aggressively nice. And you know what? He's very famous. He's really successful. He's good at what he does. Being nice to people is a very powerful thing. Everybody should be nicer to everybody else. All right, darling, shall we read the next story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fir trees are racist.
Fir trees, apparently, according to the people of my state, Oregon, fir trees are racist. Let's have a look at why. So there's a school in Portland, apparently, that wants to name their mascot an evergreen tree, which I think is a pretty lame mascot. Toxic Masculinity, weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.